Okay, so everybody, welcome to our webinar. It is actually called Transparency, Accountability, and Justice. OPRA and FERPA request unlocking information for families. So we are the New Jersey Coalition for Learners, and we are a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting students, parents, and families navigating New Jersey's education system. This webinar is being recorded. All content produced by New Jersey Coalition for Learners, including but not limited to presentations, webinars, written materials, and resources, is protected by copyright law. Reproduction, distribution, or any other form of use of our content without explicit written consent from New Jersey Coalition for Learners is strictly prohibited. Our webinars are recorded for internal purposes only, and attendees are prohibited from screen recording, capturing audio, video, or any other form of recording during the session. Unauthorized recording or distribution of our webinar content will be subject to action by the organization. By participating in our webinars, you agree to comply with these terms. This webinar is intended for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional, legal, or educational advice. The New Jersey Coalition for Learners provides opportunities for open discussions on various topics at no cost to families. All conversations, guidance, and information shared are meant to inform but should not be relied upon as a substitute for consulting with qualified professionals in legal or educational fields. Additionally, New Jersey Coalition for Learners does not endorse, promote the views, opinions, or expertise of any panelist or speaker. Panelists are invited to share their perspectives, and their participation does not imply agreement or alignment with New Jersey Coalition for Learners' mission or stance on any topic. Kai, you're going to be on the spotlight. Go ahead.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So the purpose of today's webinar is transparency matters, especially if you are about to enter into a formal dispute. Records requests should happen first, and our panelists are going to help us understand why and how. There are tools. We need to use them. We need the leverage that they will provide, because currently we are at a significant disadvantage in the dispute process. Together, I do know that we will figure out how to secure early access to education for our kids if we keep coming here, showing up, and talking about this. So please, any questions along the way, place them in the chat, and we may get to them as we go along, or we will absolutely get to as many as we can after, some of our panelists wrap up. With that, we can jump in. We will just thank right off the bat everybody for being here tonight. It is not easy to take time out of our evenings, and you're all showing up. So this is pretty awesome. I'm excited. I'm very proud of us. Chris, we're going to let you kick this off, because I know that I still struggle with the difference between OPRA and FERPA and when to use which one. So if you could explain, well, first introduce yourself, and let us know how many kids you have, and maybe what district you're in if you're comfortable, and then just let us know what the difference is between OPRA, FERPA, and how you have used both in your advocacy.
Kai, I think Chris lost her connection. I don't see her.
Chris is on base. She may have lost her connection.
She was having technical difficulties before we started.
Well, I really wanted that to happen first. So give it maybe a minute or two. Second or two. We're not going to wait a minute or two. All right, let me text her. So we're going to pivot then. Katian, we're going to jump to you if that's okay. And, you have a lot to say. So your experience is vast, and we need help understanding how you have used OPRA requests in your advocacy. You probably have more experience than any pro se advocate in this space. So if you could just introduce yourself, you're on mute. Let us know how many kids. The mute. Deanna, can you unmute? There she
Yes,
goes.
panelists, stay unmuted, please.
Oh, I'll
Okay.
stand.
All right. Yeah. Hi. Good evening. My name is Katie Ann Drummond. Um, some people call me by Cacciani. That's my Brazilian name. But I'm okay if you call me Katie. Um, so my journey began with my son with special needs. He was a preemie, 24-weeker. He was stillborn. A lot of needs. CP. He's in a wheelchair. Had a feeding tube, did not speak for the longest time, um, a lot of medical needs. So I stayed home for 5 years and dedicated to learning how I could care for my child with special needs. And then we began early intervention. And after we transitioned into early intervention, he went to a out of district placement due to all of his needs. Then after he went to school, I decided to change my career and I began learning more about my son's needs. There was some situations that made it concerning how my son's needs were being supported. And then we filed for dual process. A few times, very successful. We went through mediation and were able to come to an amicable resolution. And then in, I believe, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2021, 2023, 2023, right after COVID, we ended up filing for dual process again. And at this time, it escalated to where we try to go as pro se parents, right? So go in, try to talk, try to come to a resolution without success. So we went through mediation and there was no success at that point. And then the school district filed for transmittal of our case. So this is where it gets interesting because I do not know how to go in front of a judge and argue for my son's needs. So I tried my best to look for information. And then I learned about OPRA, which is open records that you can find about your own child. And that is how we present our case to say, here are the facts. And how do I obtain these facts when the school districts have access to your child's information? So we submitted a form, and Chris can go more in depth about the form when she joins back in. So the form can be found in the school website. You can generate your own form, but we requested our child's records from the school district, and that included everything from all evaluations or the staff that was working with him, finding out if they're all certified, because at times you can have individuals working with your child, but they're not certified. It could be a substitute teacher. So that is a if, key information that you need to know their qualifications and also what kind of services they're providing. So we learn about everything related to our son's um, educational records during using Oprah. So that's how I started. But then that case was settled, and we thought it was the end of it in 2024. And um, once we started the school year in July of 2024 during the summer, we had an IEP meeting in September 2024. And we did not have all the key members of the team present at that time. So The IEP meeting was not productive. And then in December 2024, they denied my son, who's legally blind, teacher for the blind services. And they also denied my son um, assistive technology services. And the decision was done unilaterally by the district administrators and also the case manager. So it was very insightful when I did an additional OPRA request and file for another dual process pro se, because I learned that before the IEP meeting, there was communication of what was going to be discussed during the IEP meeting and what decisions were going to be made before the IEP meeting. So that was a unilateral decision that did not include my input, my husband's input, nor did it include data to support their unilateral decision. As a result, we filed again, and we try to go to a resolution session, and with no success, and then we try to go to settlement without success. So here is the very important thing about OPRA, especially after 2024, September 2024, because there was some changes that while you were at trial, even in once your case was transmitted, before 2024, you could still access OPRA, and you could have access to internal emails. You could have access to a lot of information. Now, there's a law that was signed in September 24. Kai, can we share that so we can see the slide 20?
So slide 20. Okay.
Yes.
Somebody else. I have to admit them. Share.
So in very simple language, this new law that was signed by Governor Murphy basically says, yes, that one, the limitation of a request submission. So now you cannot utilize OPRA to seek records that are already subject of court order or pending discovery and request. So the key part is if you're trying to obtain anything related to your child, yes, you could submit it from the time you file to the time before it's transmitted to a judge with the 45 days. So at any time during that period, you can still request OPRA. Once you or the school district requests for the case to be transmitted to a hearing judge, you no longer have access to OPRA. So that is a very key important information that you end up without essential information, and it could be limited. So the benefit of OPRA is that once you request it, the school district or any government agency have to respond within 7 days and provide you all the files. They can ask for an extension, and you may agree to have an extension, and that happened to us. So initially we requested our OPRA files, and the school district did not respond within the 7 days. So then I submitted an additional email, and then they responded they needed additional time. And 21 days go by and they did not respond. So I then had to seek out the Government Records Council, which is called GRC. And GRC is when a government agency is out of compliance. Kai, we can put the slide out. So the GRC, you would have to file within 30 days of your request. So you only have 21 days after those 7 days expire to submit a request. So there it goes. That's a denial of access because they do not respond within the 7 days. Then they did not respond when I followed up. So you would go to the GRC, and Kai will be sharing the link, and you will complete this form. A key thing about this form is that if you can we go down a little bit, Kai, where it says, do you wish to have mediation? A little bit more down. So there is right there, it should be right there. Go down a little bit. So it basically says that if you are willing to go into mediation, you click yes. They might deny your request unless you provide a mediation form. So the way it works, they would have an attorney from the GRC look at all the information you send. It will give the government agency an opportunity to respond. And then you will provide all your evidence when you submitted the information to the government agency. And there will be the school district or government agency would have an opportunity to respond. And someone will be assigned as an attorney to look over the case. And also, you can look at the status of your case or any case actually in the state of New Jersey by going to the website and just searching about the records. So let me see. Yes. All right. So then the decisions are made available for public consumption by searching the complaint, the public agent, and the complaint number or the status. Can we click on that one, Kai, where it says mediation checkbox? The next,
In this document,
not this document, the other document.
back to our, what would it be called?
It's the
Timeline for response?
GRC mediation checkbox without.
Oh, mediation. Yep, I see. The denied link.
Yeah.
Yep. Coming.
Not that one.
Not that one.
I apologize.
This
So
one?
yes, that one. So here you can search. So Kai, can you click on the bottom one that says sort order? And then click
This one.
yes, and then you click something just such as a status. And then check and do the search. And you can see all the cases that has been investigated and the summary, the decision, and what was the outcome. And you can find any government agency. So this is a very powerful tool that you can use once you are looking to preserve information and to protect your rights to utilize OPRA when it's being denied. OPRA can be submitted to any government agency, including the courts. So if your case was heard by a judge, you can request to see all internal communications, the emails between the judges and the parties, and internal notes that may been checked by the judge regarding your case. So it is a wonderful tool that really helps you prepare for a situation that you may not been prepared to have to go to this point to try to advocate for your child. But it is very useful when you need to prove your child's needs are necessary. So I will
But
conclude.
why would I click on, Tatiana, when I click on summary, it's just this blank box.
It's not on the, so it should come up, Kai, under the summary.
HTML.
Yes. And then
Oh,
it shows everything.
So you could search by school district then and see who has submitted what in your school district, or Like complaint subject, I mean, I guess it's either subject, complaint number, status, or most recent date. So subject.
Yes, so if you have your complaint number, you can search complaint number. If it is the subject, you can search the subject.
Okay, I've never even used this, so wow. Got to play around in here. And I'll just say now that if you have any questions when you're working through any of these documents, bring them to the private group, please, because we are all learning there together. And there are several people who can help us figure out how to find what we're looking for. So Katian, thank you.
My pleasure. If you guys have any questions, we'll answer them at the end. Thank you.
Yeah, can you just explain actually while we're on this topic is the difference between, I know you hit on it, discovery once you're in an active dispute versus OPRA before we arrive in an active dispute?
So during an active dispute, you will want to know, for example, what is the internal communication about your child. So for example, a very interesting email that I found, also I found many. One of them was the conversation that was unilaterally making a decision that they were going to deny my son's services without looking at the data, without looking at anything, right? So then they also did not give me a prior written notice, and a prior written notice really explains their thinking. Okay, so we denied this child services. So why? Explain to us why, right? So all of this information, it's accessible to you through OPRA because it's 7 days. You get it right away. Discovery, you have to send it through the judge and then to the other party, and then they will comply. And then they may try to deny some of your requests. And the discovery is information that you're trying to discovery to use as proof, as evidence during your court hearing. So that is a much longer process, and there might be obstacles in getting that information versus OPRA, which they have to have access. So, for example, if there is an incident at school that your child, for example, I don't know, was being bullied and it's caught on camera, you can ask for video evidence. If I don't know, the school bus, for example, if your child was in the school bus and was trying to get to his or her seat and tripped and fell, right? So now your child has a bruise and there isn't the evidence. So you can ask for an OPRA request to view that footage, right? It makes the process much easier and faster when you go to OPRA versus the discovery, because they can create obstacles to obtain that information.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I found out I guess, once we were already in a dispute that I should have requested OPRA first because I would have had a lot more to lean on. And I think it saves us a lot of time and energy to have information up front into, their thinking, their communication. They're getting smarter about it now. So they're starting to go into classrooms and have these conversations, or into offices and have these conversations, but there's still a lot that happens because everyone's very busy. So let us, because Chris is still having trouble getting connected from the base, move to David, please. David, if you could introduce yourself. I mean, David, we just met David a few months ago because he is driving this huge transparency initiative. And I've never known anybody to tackle something like this in New Jersey and beyond. So, I mean, we were very excited to meet David, and I wanted him to, kind of get people involved in this initiative because we have to complete the map. So, David, if you can kind of tell us who you are, how you came into this conversation to begin with, and then what the initiative is and how we can all help, please.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm having some system issues with the sharing. But just 1 second.
I'm not sharing, am I?
No.
Oh, it's me.
But sometimes if one person is sharing, we can't get the other one up, but I don't think I'm sharing anymore.
All right, let me. Okay,
And then
that's
Kip, we
promising.
see your question. We will circle back to your question.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question.
And someone wanted to add a comment, so.
That's a good question.
Okay, hopefully you guys can see. 1 sec.
Yes.
Okay, you guys can still see?
Yes.
That's even better.
Okay,
Mhm.
awesome. I'm you know,
That's
it's
you.
yeah, that is me. Who am I and what am I here? I mean, I guess let's start as as a parent. I it's hard to share things on a recorded line. But I can definitely say that like as a parent, the feeling that your child is not safe at school, that really shook me to my core. And just like, I just felt like an emotional wreck because I didn't feel comfortable that my child was at school. And then you have the expectation that like you go to these IEP meetings and you're just expected to like be all professional and everything's fine. And it's just like um it's hard. Um and so I'm trained as a data scientist. And so I just sort of, there was a certain point where like I just sort of like pivoted where like I felt like my IEP team wasn't really listening to me so much. And I just wanted to start thinking like as a scientist, like how does the school district respond to things? And it's really interesting. And so why I'm here is that I mean, besides my personal reasons, which is literally why I'm here, but like, what am I doing here? It's that there's so much data to be analyzed, and there's so many insights that we can get from it, and hopefully like improve outcomes for children with special needs by having access to this data, because the less we know, the more power the school district has over us. And that shouldn't be the case when we're concerned about the safety of our children or whether they're getting an appropriate education. And so the first project I did, I just think of like projects. And so like the first project was like IEP restored, where like I'm just going to like get public data and I'm going to reconstruct IEPs from that. And I'm just gonna make this like massive searchable database from it. And it's actually really hard to search really hard to search these cases because they're not always available. So they're from like due process cases and things like that. And some states even like take them down after a certain amount of time from their websites. So that was like the first project that and I'm still working on it, where I get to add more cases each month. And I so frequently run into people like, oh, like my child has this diagnosis and this issue, and I'm looking for like ideas for accommodations or assessments and things like that. And then I'm just like, oh, here's this database, because I run into the same issue all the time where um I don't know what they offer because they don't tell me. Or a different school district will offer it, or maybe it's even a different state. And so I want to know like what are the options out there and what has worked for other families and what hasn't. So anyways, that's sort of what I do. Um, 1 sec. Okay. And then I think I just ran into this really cool story. It was a while back ago, but it's sort of like an open record success story where they just made OPRA requests on New Jersey state complaints. And they basically found that, the likelihood of, even when they do find violations, they'll just say, previously they would say, according to their analysis, that it's just beyond the scope of the investigation. We agree there's a violation, but we're not going to investigate it further. And then only 1 out of 13 of the state complaints actually resulted in relief. And that's just like really awful odds. Like even if you have like an extremely solid case, like you can just get shut down. And so we don't really understand the system. and that's really like really highlights like just the power of data. And I hear all the time like people are thinking, oh, maybe I do a file a state complaint or something like that. But I think the key is to learn where other people have had success and where other people like struggled, so that we don't repeat the same mistakes over and over again. So that sort of leads to this project, which is really excited to collaborate with Kai and team on this New Jersey School Insurance Transparency campaign. And we don't have, most of us don't have like $1 million slush funds for hiring attorneys and things like that. So we want to understand like what is the buy-in that the district has to pay if they're going to escalate this all the way through due process. What are the legal costs involved? Because these insurance policies that school districts pay in advance, it basically creates an incentive for them not to provide services potentially. And so we've been collecting districts. We have about 380 of the roughly 660 school districts. And we're building a I don't know how to describe it, a search tool where you can look up your own district to see what their deductible is, to see what their financial incentives are, because parents need to be informed so that they can understand how their school district operates. And so this is part of a campaign where we're asking parents to volunteer and submit OPRA requests. And we're making really great progress, and we get lots of interesting documents. And so here, one of the things that we note is that the school district often has to pay a deductible every time sorry, they have an IEP here. And so it makes things interesting, because at first when I filed due process, I was under the assumption that you want to like aggregate all of your cases together into one case. But really, that might not be the best strategy, because you're basically lowering the district's costs. And if you have a bunch of different separate cases, each with separate issues, then that could mean that the school district has to pay more. It's more time commitment from you, but it's a strategy. If you feel like the school district has this weird financial incentive that they won't provide services because they already invested all this money to hire legal to fight them. So that's something interesting that came up. The other thing, sorry about my voice, guys. The other thing that's really interesting is that some of these documents have premium amounts. And so you'll see like different premiums, and obviously the premiums correspond to like the number of claims the school district is making. And so that's another like really easy piece of information that could be informative to get a sense of how cooperative your school district is. But yeah, and then sometimes you'll get responses that are just completely vague, and the records aren't meant to like walk you through what an insurance policy is. Here, like in the previous ones, they were kind to mention each IEP here. That's like super clear for parents. Here in this one, it's coverage A and coverage B. I'm like, what's coverage B? What's coverage A? Like, no one knows this. So this is where like OPRA is a great tool, but sometimes you can get really cool information by supplementing that with what's already out there. And so if you go to the provider, they actually have a description of what coverage B is, and some details of the policy that weren't responsive to this original OPRA request. And so you can combine information, and I highly recommend that. Like sometimes just like start with like, whether it's ChatGPT or Google or some combination. And if you use AI, then definitely verify it. But you can often get a lot of information by combining an OPRA request with an informed internet search. And so here they spell out what coverage B is. And that's what we're interested in. And you hear things like, oh, this is only for defense costs only, which is also interesting as well. And so we have, Kai, if you can drop the link into the comments. This is our New Jersey School Insurance Transparency Campaign. And you can, if you're interested, you can also email me, and I'm happy to send you the form. You'll get an email that has pretty much the OPRA request template for you. You do have to confirm at the bottom certain like certifications, like you've never been convicted of an indictable offense, and we spoke earlier about the request not being in connection with a legal proceeding and things like that. But it's really made to be really easy to send an OPRA request, and like for parents that don't have a lot of experience doing it, it's also a great opportunity to gain more experience in navigating the system, because it's a little bit intimidating at first, but with practice and it's manageable. It's not so bad. And so some questions that I get a lot are that anyone can participate. You don't even have to live in New Jersey. You won't, the district that's assigned will be random, or not quite random, but we want to make sure that we're not getting like duplicate information and just like wasting requests. We're going to compile the information and publish it for parents to access freely. And if you want your district's info now, you can just email me. And if we don't have it, I mean, we already have more than half of them, we can bump it up in the queue. And the significance of this is that, if you're tired of school districts dragging their feet and providing supports and services, this project, brings transparency and accountability. So districts are incentivized to collaborate and not conceal. And so finally, thank Kai and the New Jersey Coalition for Learners admin team for collaborating on this effort. And that's what I have for you.
So thank you, David. It was kind of the perfect storm where we all met and we had this network, this group going already. So we could start getting, more requests in. So it's not necessarily going to be your school district. When I received the email back, I got Newark. So I submitted, and I still owe you that. I know I still owe you that because I'm waiting to hear back. I don't think I've heard back from them yet. So I put the link over here in the chat. If you would be so kind as to sign up to submit one OPRA request. This is, of course, going to be live on the website. We'll do some promoting next week so people find this webinar and participate in this campaign, because this is going to be at our fingertips, right? It's very confusing. Like, I know today is going to be entirely overwhelming. I'm overwhelmed, and I've been at this for several months now. And I still look at everything. I'm like, oh, I didn't do it in the right order. But the point of tonight is that we know these tools exist. We have to learn how to use them. And the good news for all of us is we have a group we can come to that is a wonderful support network, and we can ask these questions and we can help each other get the information that is going to help us better advocate, for access to education. Because in many of our cases, we don't understand why the decisions are being made. And it's going to make a lot more sense when we figure out that an insurance pool is paying for only defense fees. No supports, no services, no placements, none of it. And if they've met their deductible, which we're uncovering all of the deductibles as well, they may have up to $100,000 still in defense fees that they can utilize against you until they exhaust you and you quit. And that is more important because it's paid for. It's not coming out of the district's budget. It's the insurance budget. So this liability insurance, I know Tara and I talk about this all the time. It is kind of the foundation of, how would you even put it? The foundation, I guess, of the dysfunction, really, because it doesn't make sense what's happening to us in our cases. And it's because we don't understand insurance exists. And I'm not going to keep going on about this, but even our board candidates really don't understand this. I brought it to our CPEG meeting last week or the week before, and all of the candidates that were coming in and running that were not currently sitting on the board, they had never heard of this. So it's an important question to ask, especially in our CPEGs, especially when we go to board meetings, just are you aware that there is an insurance attorney that is litigating in special education disputes? It's very harmful. So with that, do you want to jump to some questions, or what do we have here?
I want to let Melissa ask her question. She's been waiting since the beginning, so
Thank
I am going to ask her to unmute. I kind of would like the public to be able to ask their questions verbally. I think it's easier.
That's a good idea.
So, Melissa, I'm just scrolling to find you.
Hi, I want to comment on sorry, I took the note of the first person that had spoke. She had mentioned, I believe it was 45 days that you were able to request documentation. I had reached out immediately to the Trenton Civil Rights Commission, and they had failed to do what they stand for in their mission, because what they could have asked, and when I had, obviously I didn't do it in the proper time frame, and I had to go pro se. And when I had the documents to see factual information and times reported for incidents of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and my son had an IEP since third grade, I am now homeschooling, but I had pulled him immediately in January of eighth grade. And my biggest issue is that I had to go pro se due to negligence and breach of care. The date that it had occurred was the January 24th of 2024. And this is when the principal had been notified by another parent of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, but it was not reported by the principal, who is still employed today. And he went to the local police station at 10:41 on January 25th, the next day of 2024, and had my son transported to a 30-minute away basketball game and made no effort to communicate with parents. I have been disregarded from the Trenton Civil Rights Commission, and not only with factual information, I was disregarded going pro se when I could have, and I had all documentation of deliberate indifference and conscious disregard of risk of harm to a minor's health and safety. And not only that, I requested an emergency IEP meeting. And as I was trying to do a safety return to school, I was still doing my best to make effort for my child to return. The principal claimed he needed to welcome his new school environment of upcoming middle schoolers. And that is when I knew I needed to protect not only my child from discrimination and education and access to addressing safety, but what needed to be provided in accommodating a child with an IEP. I have now learned in a community such as Princeton that we are failing more children than educating, and how upsetting with we're not holding people accountable who are providing an entire school environment. Um, it's horrible to say. It's a dance of the lemons with the education in America. It is horrible. From what I've heard from the first two families, our rights with FAPE are violated entirely. And this is a concern that needs to be addressed. It's unsafe situations at school, and this is really why we have such a pandemic in America with school shootings. I really truly believe we're now turning around with taking away cell phones. I work in Trenton, and it's unfortunate. The children should not have cell phones, but when they attend an after school activity, they're all on the phone. So we're not sending the correct messages of concern that needs to be addressed. And I certainly see many people employed as security, but the children are still in unsafe situations at school.
Melissa,
Yes.
I'm gonna have to cut you off. I
Yes.
do
Oh
need
no,
you
that
to
was great.
ask your
Thank you.
question.
No,
Please go into the Facebook group, share your experience. A lot of families have gone through similar things. I am a schooling mom. I've been there, I've been in your shoes, and it hasn't been pleasant. So feel free to please go into the Facebook group and post. You can also reach out to me personally if you need help with homeschooling and things like that also.
And I'll just add the sentiment you shared that, we feel very trapped when something isn't going right and
Yep.
very unheard. And the mission of this organization is to truly give voice back to families, students, and educators by any means possible. We have to. There's no choice. Our rights have to be enforceable. We have to be heard. We have to have meaningful participation in our child's education. Districts can't just get away with doing whatever is, convenient and cost effective. So there's a lot to unpack there, but I think that we're making significant progress in unpacking that in the private group. So I put the link in the chat. I think the most effective thing anyone can do when they have an experience, you could even post anonymous, share it in the group.
So
It all matters, and we can help each other.
Kim sent, do you, Miss Drummond, or anyone have sample language of what specifically can be asked to include in the OPRA form? You mentioned all internal emails. What else can we ask for specifically?
So this is a great question, and I think Chris is here. So I'm gonna give Chris and Tara an opportunity to speak. If do not touch those, I will touch back on their presentation if that's not addressed. But there is a lot that you can obtain from internal information, such as how much they pay for your child's transportation. Or, for example, I see Chris dropped off again. Or, for example, how much do they pay for services for your child? And you can see when those services were billed, and then you find out if your child is receiving FAPE, because then you will see the frequency of the therapies that are supposed to be servicing your child. So there's a lot of information from anyone from the secretary. Can have a log of who signed in to see your child, to their records, videos. So for example, I always ask for my IEP to be recorded. They tried to deny me access to my video, and they said that it was going to be deleted, but they cannot delete the video. And I submitted the information, and the video showcase when they are just denying my son's services. So it's a very useful tools. So um, I see Chris dropped out again, and if it's okay, I'll continue to explain. When you request OPRA, typically you go to the school website, and then you go to the school website where you live, and you'll find the OPRA form. And the OPRA form, you will fill out everything that you need. Typically in those forms, there's a checkbox. And in those checkbox, you check everything that you are requesting. Other instance, for example, there's form that Kai may share with a specific language that I'm requesting all communications between my son's teacher, the therapist, the superintendent, the business administrator. You can go on, and you can put a time period. Very easy to utilize. And then you submit the form to the business administrator. The business administrator needs to respond within 7 days. Not that one. Yes, that one. So very easy. You put your name, your child's name, your mailing address, and usually you do not have to pay for it because you asked for it to be sent to you electronically. Unless you want a million pages of your child's record, you would use this form. And then you will go into the box and put a specific information to whom you're requesting that information from. So you would include, for example, Mrs. Drummond, she's the teacher. Kai Collins, she's a therapist. David is the superintendent, for example. And then you give a time period of when you want the information. It could be from the time your child turned 3 and began services until now. There is a shorter time than if it's more meaningful within the past year. And you could get all communication, even if they have a sticky note that they put in their drawer regarding your child, you can get that information. And the reason why I find OPRA more user friendly than FERPA is because OPRA, you get it within 7 days. And FERPA, it tends to take 45 days for you to get the FERPA. So the difference between the two, they're both distinct government items that you can have access to government information. So OPRA is within New Jersey. So that is a state agency that you can look for information regarding any government agency. FERPA, on the other hand, it's a federal Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. That it is federal act. So that comes from the federal government and it's nationwide. So when you get OPRA, for example, you can have access to all government agency, the courts, police station, any government agency. While FERPA, it really relates to your child educational records and their rights. So that's the difference between the two. So FERPA is maintained by the school organization, the educational institute, versus OPRA, it can be municipalities. So the courts, the counties, the public school. So you can find out anything that cases of discrimination in the government, anything that you need to know. In OPRA, parents have the rights to review their child's information. Let me rephrase. FERPA, you as a parent have the right to review your child's information. and any addendums that is done as part of the record, versus OPRA, pretty much anyone can have access to any government record. There is some exemptions to certain things that may be redacted. So for example, if a school district is using a lawyer to consult with, right? So you can see when that lawyer spoke to the school district administrative, but they might redact the details. So you may not know what was talked about because that's attorney-client privilege. And the benefit of OPRA is that when they do not comply within the 7 days, you can always file for the GRC as soon as they denied your request. So you within that sweet cushioning of 30 days to get all the records that you need, because now you're invoking higher forces to support your request, if that makes sense.
It's a lot of information. So thank you, because this is just the introduction. It's the beginning. Chris, I think, was able to get back in. So
Yeah, I'm
Chris,
trying
you're
to get her set up right now.
okay. If you're in, please tell us the difference between the two in your words. If you can simplify how you use them and how it has helped you. In the meantime, here's another OPRA request that I love to make, and I do it for a lot of different districts, to get all of the insurance information. I want actual invoices with line items to see when I send an email, who's reviewing it. It's always a law firm, right? So you think your IEP team reviews all of your information? False. It's the law firm. And
Chris, I'm asking you to unmute. You have to select it.
we're going to try. If at first you don't succeed, try again.
Let me see if it will. Chris, okay, try to click your unmute button right now.
I'm going to do a post with what else we can ask for specifically in OPRA and FERPA requests, because
Yeah.
I think that we can compile and put that out so it is all in one place, because there's so many things that we
Yeah,
need to-
examples of the languages is a must.
Yeah. Because if it's not specific enough, it can get thrown out very easily.
Yep.
And they want to
they
throw
will.
them out. They want to say no. Their only job is to say no. They don't want to give this information.
Just to build off of Kai's great answer, I actually have a couple strategies that I like to do. One is that, like, I know, like, we're focused on our own school district, and that's completely normal. But one of the other things I like to do is I like to send the same request to different school districts, because then you start getting contradictions in responses, and one will say, sure, here's your answer, and then one will say, you're gonna have to pay like $20 for us to like redact all of these forms for you or something like that. And so, like, just sending multiple requests out to different places to get responses to see if a district's dragging your feet, so you don't necessarily always have to like escalate, just sort of get more data. But I think the other thing is that you can also get the log of OPRA requests that a school district has. That's also a public record. And so you can see what else other people have done. So that's also a strategy. And then I guess I feel like there was one more strategy. Sometimes I also like to be very narrow in my first request. I want to build that relationship so I get a sense of how fast things are going. So like in the campaign, I we purposely made it very narrow so that school districts are incentivized to just get this off their plate. It's just one record. And so you get a sense of how long it's going to take. And so, like, if you ask for everything the first time, they could stop. But if you chunk it, if you just ask for a couple things each time, you know, at whatever rate that you feel comfortable with, you might get a response faster. And when I have 1,000 things to do, I like to procrastinate. So you're just giving them less of a incentive to procrastinate, because it's really just one form. So sometimes it's just better to be super focused in your request, and then over time you can, because it's a 7-day timeline. Generally speaking, unless if they ask for an extension, which they probably won't if it's just one record that they already have sitting around, then it'll be pretty fast, and then you build a relationship, and you keep getting more records.
Yeah, less is more. That's a great strategy. I wish I would have used that to begin with.
Okay,
We have a hand raised.
Yep. This is actually Eddie or Edie. I'm not sure, but I am going to ask them to unmute. Edie?
Yeah, it's not letting me.
Yeah, you're off. You're unmuted.
I'm
Yep,
off.
you're unmuted.
So I don't have a question more than a suggestion for people that are struggling. And this is something I've discovered recently. ChatGPT is absolutely your friend. If you go into ChatGPT and say, I want the specific language with the code for an OPRA request for emails regarding my child, myself, my spouse, and all correspondence, what do I write? So my district does not give me, you had my district's OPRA requests on screen. My district is like blank, like they don't really give you any leeway, and everything has to be written out in hand. Like you can't even edit the form. Like they make it as difficult as they possibly can. So when you use ChatGPT is absolutely your friend. And if this is something I discovered recently, so my district has employed a new tactic where after on the 7th day, they will reply and say, we need more time. And I didn't know before that they have to give you a reason. They can't just say we need more time. So now I go back to them and I'm like, what's the legal reason you need more time? Like for OPRA, whatever, and I state the law, right? And the thing, like, why do you need more time? And then I started collecting the reasons. It's always the same reason.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think I have had them extended up to 5 weeks. And who has time to do all of these GRC escalations, right? That's why it's so strategic to just chunk it and get one done before you move on to the next one. But you're right, they're going to delay, and it's not necessarily legally compliant delay. So we have to push back.
All right, Tara, you're unmuted already.
Yeah, so so much to say. Correct me if I'm wrong, David, but pretty much anything that hits a school district is public record, except when it comes to personal information and personnel data. Is that right?
Most personnel data, I think, not all of it. I've seen people request like from the OAL, so I've requested log logs before. It's a fun one. You get to go through all the list of all of the experts, because you have it's not just with the OAL, it's not just, we're kind of in a niche with special education, but with the OAL, it's much more inclusive, and you have like investigative reporters and things like that, and you get to see like how they ask things, and they have like a lot more experience. But yeah, the short answer is you're right. But yeah, I feel like I went on a tangent. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so things that I requested, things that I never imagined I could get, like the invoices from the insurance lawyers, etc. Internal emails going back and forth about my child. So I've gotten those.
Yeah, and then I think the one way I've seen districts really push back is they try to charge you. If your request is too big, I've seen that. And so I had that with one district. It's really interesting because OPRA isn't really for research purposes. But sometimes research comes out of it, even if that's not the intent. So like, for example, one request that I did was I asked for like IEs, IE contracts that school districts provide. And so I might be interested in like the number of IE requests that the school district has provided in the last year. They could come back to me. So I asked for all the IEs. They could come back to me and say, like, we're gonna have to charge you for this. And I'm like, okay, well, how many IEs are we talking about to justify that charge? And then you get some information. So it's all sorts of like tricks. But that the cost thing I think is one of the biggest tactics a school district has to sort of like try and box you out. Just something to be aware of, and then it's also an incentive to like keep the request as focused as you can. I mean, you know, as you like build a relationship with your OPRA requester, you could, you know, presumably you could even like try and like schedule a meeting with them. You know, if you're gonna like build this relationship with them and ask in government records, just like an investigative reporter would, that's also an option too. But yeah, that's a really cool record.
So this is, to your points, your legal invoices. If you're in a dispute, the insurance attorney is being billed for conversations about your child's records, and this man or woman doesn't know your child. So they're just reviewing it, they're just building their defense, right? Whatever you're asking for, they're running it through their insurance attorney. So I have pages and pages and pages of, this is just our case, right? In the past 18 months, there's several different invoices. Just anytime that director of special education leaves the room, she heads straight over to this insurance attorney to talk about our child and our family. So, this is the reality that's hidden, all of these charges, right? Here we go, $5,000 on that bill.
Hey guys.
So I wanted to give you an example. Chris, is that you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go for it.
I'm so sorry. Since we are in this Oprah, I wanted to share this in the chat. Because remember, Kai, I sent you that SharePoint that I let me see.
Where is it?
How
Did
do
you
I
put it
do
in that
this one?
document?
Okay. Oops. There you go. So regarding my FERPA request that seems to be altered, I wanted to show, let me see, is it showing?
It's in the chat.
All three?
Oh, I see one.
Okay, let me do the other ones. I wonder if
My
it's still...
eyes, I need glasses. It's time.
Okay. I wanted to show you guys that we can utilize Oprah for this kind of stuff because, man, these people, they have altered my son's educational records to look compliant on the deadline of August 11th. So I just sent this request via Oprah. I think it was yesterday. Right there. Wanted you guys to see it.
This was yesterday you sent this?
Yes, let me double check.
And what are you, in a nutshell, requesting?
Oh, actually, I sent this on Monday. I am asking them for all audit logs and metadata. So copies of all the access histories or version histories showing the creation, upload, modification. Because that SharePoint link that they sent me, they redacted a lot of things. However, they forgot to delete some things and I caught it. I wanted you guys to see that.
And these are your student records.
Yes.
So how big is this file? Are we talking, 100 pages, 1,000 pages when you get these files
About
back?
100. I'm going to send the, let me see, where's my original FERPA request?
And all of these requests, if you guys need language, ask it in the group because we'll find somebody to give you language. And again, to Edie's point, ChatGPT is our best friend. Any of us who have done this have not done this without ChatGPT. Let's not sit here and pretend we got a law degree. You know, this is hard stuff. We're not supposed to know how to do it. ChatGPT has leveled the playing field for us to a very large degree. Is it bulletproof? Absolutely not. Can it give you horrible information? Oh my goodness, yes. But if we learn to work with it and use it as a thought partner, it is a very effective tool. So far as language.
Yes, yes.
So Chris, we're going to want to get through to some questions, but thank you for posting this because people can open this up and see language. In a nutshell, what is the difference between OPRA and FERPA? And when have you used each? You can't
Okay.
say it enough times because it's very confusing.
Yes. So first of all, guys, I have sent 7 OPRA requests regarding a lot of things concerning my son's records and, you know, these, what do you call this? The insurance that David proposed. Let me see. Oh, Kai, before I forget, I wanted to say to everybody, because I know there's a lot of confusion between this OPRA and FERPA. So for OPRA, guys, it is 7 business days. Weekends do not count. Day 1 starts the day after the custodian of records receives your request. So for example, if submitted on Friday, day 1 is Monday, and the 7th business day is the Tuesday is Tuesday following week, assuming there's no holidays. For FERPA, it is 45 calendar days, so weekends do count, but delivery can shift to the next school day if offices are closed.
Yeah. And you know, we're not going to nickel and dime them for a day here or a day there, but you know, if it's
Yes.
urgent, then you could push back because there are days assigned for a reason. It's so we can't, you know, be harmed by delay.
That's true. But remember, I filed a complaint with GRC, and something that I learned that, oh, I'm happy that they allowed me to still file that, so that is currently pending. For GRC, it must be timely filed. It needs to be within 45 days of the date of the alleged denial. We can show good cause to GRC by providing opportunity to do so within 5 business days. And GRC complaints are handled by attorneys. So currently I have 1 with them.
Well, out of all of your requests, if you only have 1 with them, that's not bad. You have a lot of
I know.
requests. I don't know how you keep up. So which one would you think? I mean, we're going to be using OPRA a lot more than we're going to be using FERPA. Is that just a generalization that is fair to say?
I would say yes.
Right. So OPRA used to be OPRA machine in New Jersey. Now every single district has their own form, so far as I'm aware. You could even Google it. So I used Cinnaminson. You could do your district, Cinnaminson Township, OPRA request form. It's going to take it right to you. You do it in ChatGPT or Google. It is 1 page. It is so simple. And the business administrator that you email it to is right at the top, usually in big, bold blue letters. So if there's anything, any communication that you are wondering if it transpired between, let's say, the director of special education and your case manager, or the principal and the teacher, ask. You might be surprised what you find. And if you find it early, it's leverage, should anything else arise, because no district wants exposure. That's the name of the game. Limit exposure. If you have something that will expose something they don't want exposed, that's going to help you to secure whatever it is you need to access education. And there might not be anything, but more often than not, there's something you never expected you would find. All right, more questions, because I don't want to keep anyone past. I would say 10 more minutes and then we're going to wrap it up. I mean, 90 minutes. I think it's important. We can give another 10, right? If you have to log off. obviously log off. You're not stuck here. So we're going to put into the group a lot of language and a lot of different things we can obtain through OPRA and FERPA. In the meantime, if anybody wrote a question here, do you want to just ask it out loud? Edie, do you have your hand raised again? Are you on mute?
I was. I have a problem with this button all day today. Question. So how would I find out? I'll give you the scenario and you tell me if there's a way around it. So right now we're arguing over tutoring hours. We've been paying out of pocket for tutoring for the last 4 years because they refuse to cover, saying that they don't allow tutoring. And then what we found out, our case manager called me, and I think we now have a code. He calls 4 times, which means he wants to tell me something he can't put in writing. And he said he can't give me tutoring under his department, which means under special ed department. So we have a horrible director of special services, and she basically has to approve everything in the entire district. We know that. So I filed an OPRA request for how many tutoring hours the district has paid out and got 612 pages of timesheets. I kid you not, which is fine because I knew they were paying for tutoring hours. What I also asked was for the designations of the children that are receiving the hours, meaning gen ed, special ed, Title I, everything. And what they replied is that they don't keep those statistics, which is a really, really hard to believe, right? That you have no idea which categories these children fall into. How do you go around something like that?
I'll let everybody else answer. I'm going to say just right off the bat, I would open internal communication between every player you think is involved in this conversation. Principals, director of special education, case manager, teacher, psychologist, OT, whomever is involved with your child. I would get the communication because there's a conversation happening, even with the district attorney, get the invoices because they're denying you. And that's a calculated thing they're doing. So I would ask for internal communication.
So I'll even do a better one. So we went to a board because, you know, of course I went to a board meeting. I went to a board meeting and I went up to the superintendent because he kind of motioned me over. And I told him, I said, I have these 612 pages and this is in the beginning. I will OPRA request for the last 10 years if I have to. And then I'll continue to OPRA request until I find what I'm looking for, which is a needle in a haystack. And he said to come into his office for a meeting. My husband and I went for a meeting. I go in and it's him and the director of curriculum. And the director of curriculum has to work on his poker face a lot more than he is. And I basically told him, I'm like, at this point, we're done. We want tutoring for our daughter. She's in gen ed classes at this point. She has gaps. We've proven the gaps were caused by the district. They can't argue with that. It was an hour-long meeting anyway. This is the email I get from him today. I wanted to follow up with an email just to let you know that I'm still actively working on the situation we discussed in my office on Friday. I will reach back out soon. So he doesn't specify which situation, which is his complete cowardly MO. So I replied back, thank you. We have a meeting tomorrow with the team. We would love to have a plan for tutoring in place. I want to put on record that this email was pertaining to tutoring because that was our discussion.
So two things. They're going to call you into the office because that's the way they hide everything.
Yep.
Secondly, when you respond back, it's always about access. My child cannot access their education. What are you going to do about it? Put the burden back on them. Our communication has to become so strategically effective that you have to imagine that you're in a court of law and a judge is looking at this. And the only thing the district is required to do is provide your child a FAPE. You have to have language that shows your child was not able to access and then so much more data. But at least to get the ball rolling, our language has to get more strategic. We've got to stop behind closed doors meetings. They're ineffective. And then you're going to get an email exactly like you got. And nothing is going to happen. Maybe something will happen. Maybe miracles can happen. But right now there is communication going on about you and your child. I would OPRA internal communications related to all internal communications
Yep.
related to your family and your child.
Yep.
Start there and see what you find. And don't tell them you're going to do this. You know, we don't want to tell them that they are in there in that office breaking apart your case. They are getting every piece of information out of you. We don't even know what's happening. In all of
Right,
these
they already know. In my district, I'm their squeaky wheel.
Yeah.
I'm not
It's
allowed inside.
okay to be the squeaky wheel. It's
We
okay.
are. I think you're in good company.
I'm not allowed on school premises without an escort. Like they will
What?
only let me through. They only let me through to the first door, and then I have to wait in the little, call it like the hallway of doom, and then they send an escort and let me through the second set of doors. So
Oh my God.
Well, you
Oh.
know, it turns you into a crazy person when, you know, your kid is really struggling and you can't get the support that they need. But that's what they rely on. We don't want to be that person, at least not in writing, because it will be used against us at some point. Somehow we have to compartmentalize, you know, how
Yeah.
bad it is.
Or a
And-
recorded meeting.
And
so I
yeah,
do record my IEPs. I record every single one. I actually meeting with a friend that's going to show me how to take the recording, feed it into AI, and ask AI to formulate OPRA requests based on the gaps, based on the law. Apparently,
think-
it's a way to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Edie, if you wouldn't even mind asking that in the group, I want to circle back to that one for sure. There's something to unpack here, but in your situation, I think internal communication OPRA request is going to get you the most bang for your buck, you know, quickly. Mila, you have a question? Is your hand raised?
Hold on though, Kim,
Yes, hi.
Sakis.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I just saw, Kai, that you responded that you're going to add some specific language around like general advocacy. So thank you. My question, you know, relates to that. Like, well, first of all, this has been like supremely helpful. So thank you to all of you for sharing your expertise. I'm coming at this from in like a general advocacy. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit that does like local accessibility and inclusion related to disability justice. And we are more and more seeing the need to like really pivot a lot of our support towards advocacy. So, you know, trying to educate ourselves on the best techniques. So certainly, you know, having that language will be helpful. But I feel like a bigger question I have is just like, given the like wild number of grievances that are occurring and the like, you know, just like gross you know, ignoring of IEPs and you know, there's clearly like so much overlap with like racial concerns about who gets out of district, who can afford a lawyer, all of these, you know, huge questions. Any tips on like where to start? And I like David, I appreciate, you know, like start with a very specific small request. But even in terms of like narrowing down, like what are the gonna be the most helpful, you know, types of requests on a more general scale, not about a specific student, but you know, what kind of aggregate data we can get that's gonna be helpful in terms of building our case for advocacy to the BOE.
Did you ask David that question?
I asked anybody who wants to weigh
Oh,
in. I was
anybody.
you specifically, yeah, anybody who wants to weigh in. I acknowledge
And
David's.
so you want to get aggregate data so you can take this to the BOE because of course
yeah.
they are, you know, their only job is policy. So why can't we get some better policy that better protects and serves, you know, our kids?
And I feel like in our district's case, right, like it's a very progressive district, you know, a lot of like general support for diversity, equity, and inclusion, but that disability in special education isn't usually a part of that. And so wanting to kind of, you know, send some alarm bells to the BOE and to, you know, people generally about the breadth of the issues that are occurring. So yeah, I don't know if anybody has had luck with a specific type of request or, you know, specific data that can be really telling or anything like that in terms of, yeah, kind of trying to expose some of the more, you know, systematic issues. Because I mean, certainly we have stories for days of individual, you know, issues that folks are having, but yeah, just anything related to that. It's a big
My
concern too.
quick answer, and I'm gonna let everybody else go. I would say settlements. I would request all settlements.
All
And
settlements.
all legal invoices. We gotta
And when
show
you
it,
say
like,
request all settlements, that means like the actual like documentation of what the settlement is, or any like
the
any
dollar amounts.
the
So,
dollar amounts. Okay.
yeah, you may have a $500,000 settlement because there have been years and years of failure, and that family could hire a really good attorney.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
this is all money that's coming out of education funding.
Yeah.
You know, wherever if it's going into an insurance pool, it's still there's still tax dollars.
Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
know, and that happens when you have a $500,000 settlement. That is years of failure. That is total devastation that has already occurred. That's harm.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You know, and that's the harm that we can now monetize.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice, I guess. What
Super
is
helpful. Yes, that's exactly what the kind of thing I'm talking about. Okay, thank you.
I think there's a great opportunity, but I think one thing that concerns me in New Jersey is that 65% of your city budget, right, the taxes that you pay, about 65% to 80% goes into the school district, right? And for example, where I live, our taxes went up 25% for most households. So where is all that money going? When a lot of services are actually being eliminated, like extracurriculum activity are being eliminated. And then you see, for example, busing being reduced and the distance where the child has to walk, or completely eliminating busing, right? So looking at where is the money going, how is it being spent, right? So in those items of the budget approval throughout the school year, how come every single taxpayer in New Jersey is paying more for special, for education, and they're being denied services in a great number? So I think this is a bigger concern for atypical parents than just the special ed parents, because when they denied our children with special needs services, because we tend to get the blame that we are spending so much money in special education, but then those services for atypical students are being denied. So when they're spending so much money in litigation, it's taken away the services such as tutoring and extracurricular activities, because instead of, for example, paying $10,000 for tutoring, let's say, or for a teacher for the blind, we rather spend an outrageous amount of money and put in the pocket of attorneys. There's plenty of articles in New Jersey that attorneys are making over $4 million a year at one school district to fight the rights of children with special needs. So
the cost of conflict affects every single child, every family, every teacher, every community member, every taxpayer. It is not just special. The failure in special education is ballooning, and it is expensive, and it is disgraceful, and it is devastating, and it affects all of us. And there's a very good way around it if we can adopt better policy, and if we can uncover these costs and make sure that we are not funding the legal industrial complex any longer. David, do you have anything to add, or Tara?
Oh, sure.
Aggregate data.
Yeah, I mean, I think just some other things to consider. I think, and it depends what you want to go after. The Board of Ed, the Department of Education, is a good contact too. You might get more straightforward answers from the Department of Education than I think in my experience. I don't want to, you know, you might get faster responses by not going through the school district to get the information you want, and they can appear at the OAL or it can appear at the DOE. So that's an option. And then, sometimes it's metadata, like what lawyers have they been talking to? And maybe you want to start talking to those lawyers. I mean, I don't know how much they can reveal to you, but you get a sense of like, really you're looking for, I think, a culture of, is this school district hard to work with? And that's really the case I think you're trying to build. And so there are lots of, and every school district is different. They all have like their own idiosyncrasies. I think, like for example, like the disability classification rate across districts is like crazy. So all over the place, you have like one district that's like at 30%, another district that's at 10%, and like it just, there's a lot of questions as to, if my child was at a different district, maybe they would get better services somewhere else. So there's so much there, and I don't think there's necessarily going to be a one size fits all answer, but I think your general question of, is this school district difficult to work with, is so key in terms of being inclusive for children with special needs and making sure that we have measures for accountability and public record requests. I think, I mean, I certainly don't have all the answers. But I think, just thinking like, it's not just my school district, it's other school districts too.
Yeah.
I think sort of building those patterns, and sometimes, and this also came up with the insurance claims, like, oh, in some of the sheets, it gave me the premium amounts. And like, that's interesting. And so sometimes, like, when you request something, you get something else you didn't expect to get. And so when you ask another school district for something that's not your own, they might give you an idea for another record you can request. And so the only way to, like, I think the one strategy of becoming more adept at navigating this, because like, I have no idea how my school district works, no idea. I sort of like poke in the dark, like, okay, I got the log of logs, and is you just keep on requesting things, and we're, the relationship that you have with the school district is generally over many years, so you might as well, like, make it part of your ritual of just keep on asking questions.
Yeah,
I
super helpful.
love that.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you.
And like you said, none of us know everything. I said the best advocate in the world can't know everything, so we need a network of support, and we're creating a deterrent for foul play. So if they know that all of us in New Jersey and beyond are going to be requesting public records, that may deter them from doing the harm.
Right. Imagine.
So let's create the deterrent.
Yeah, right. I think that's helpful too, to think about, right, that it doesn't have to be the perfect OPRA request, right? That I can keep trying, and if they deny it or it's not something that they can provide, then there's no harm done. I think, just start somewhere is really going to be our best bet.
And that's it. It's so overwhelming, and you just kind of have to start somewhere. And then if you find something that works, let us know.
Right.
And Kim, we got to connect with you too. So we'll find you offline.
Yes, I'm thrilled to have found you all recently in this, new pivot for us. So thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you for being here. Okay, we have to wrap it up. We are way over our time, but this was an important one. So I'm just going to say thank you to everyone for being